as you can tell, I rearranged my books yesterday. I now have Genesis through Deuteronomy? Yes. And then I've got Leviticus through the Psalms. Actually, there's more Psalms down there, and then down to Ezekiel. And then I've got basically Old Testament to here. And then, oh yeah, Matthew starts there. It's like Matthew, Mark, beginning of Luke, then John, into Romans, and it goes all the way down to Revelation. So I had to move some stuff around to make room for new books that have been sitting to the side. And so from here to here is Genesis to Revelation. And then I've got like other full commentary Bibles out there. That's the eschatology section over there. Yeah, good stuff. All right. Well, I definitely can't get too interested in my books because you can only serve one master. Thankfully, my books talk a lot about my master. How's it going, everybody? Is it a bright and beautiful morning where you're at? One verse today. Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and Mammon. Now, Mammon in Aramaic is literally riches. It's the idea of serving God and serving money. Now, I've got a nice little note here in my Bible. You know, it says in Romans 14, verse 5, one person esteems one day above another, another esteems every day alike. Let each be fully convinced in his own mind. And it says at the very end, the last verse of Romans 14, for whatever is not from faith is sin. It's verses like these that remind us that God will convict us about different things. God will take different people and he will lay different convictions upon their hearts. There are many things that the Bible speaks just point blank clearly about. No way around it. This is the standard, this is the rule, this is the law, and boom, done. But there's other things that God will lay on people's hearts that we really should never get legalistic about. And yes, one of our most popular recent things has been that little old shot that some people want to get and some people don't want to get. And some people make a really big deal about it, and other people think it's like no deal at all. And at the end of the day, let each be fully convinced in his own mind. For whatever is not from faith is sin. And that's something that I taught as we went through and talked about all the mandates and other things going on, is the idea that we need to have our own convictions. Now, here it talks about serving two masters. Now, very literally talking about money and riches, this idea of pursuing wealth. But the principle of not serving two masters, well, that doesn't have to be wealth. It could be a hobby that you oh so thoroughly enjoy. And I think it'd be a shame for someone to pass on to the next life with more sports stats memorized than Bible verses. Because you can't serve two masters. And either we're committed to one or we're not. And you can have many things you're knowledgeable on and many things you commit time to. But at the end of the day, where do you draw the line? Now, one of my favorite stories that relates to this idea is Eric Liddell. Young man born in China, child of missionaries, and he ended up dying in China as a missionary. But in between, right, he served his king and country and ran in the Olympics. And Chariots of Fire is a good movie. You should check it out sometime if you've never watched it. Epic theme song. It's really good. But he was a shoo-in for the shorter races, 100-meter. But because one of the preliminary heats, the races that kind of sets your place and gets you into the final race, was on a Sunday, he refused to race in it. Someone ended up giving him a spot, and he was able to run in the 400, of which he was not favored, and yet he ended up taking the gold medal in. But the catch is that he had drawn the line. He was convinced in his own mind what God had called him to, where he drew the line in the sand, and he knew he wasn't willing to cross that because he can't serve two gods. And he knew, as his friends and the people closest to him, he knew that sports could have easily become an idol. And he assured them and assured himself that he would use his fame and his publicity really to share the gospel and to glorify God, which he did. And of course, his story, I mean, he was a fast runner. He would have won a gold medal, but how many gold medal Olympians can you name? Some of us can name a handful, but he probably would have just disappeared off the pages of time if he had just ran his race and called it a day. But in fact, it's actually him standing by his convictions that has made his story one that's been told over and over, and movies have been made about him because of the fact that he served one master and not two. It's also worth noting that this idea of pursuing riches, oftentimes people exclude themselves from this category. They're thinking, well, I'm poor, I'm barely getting by, therefore I'm not guilty of this. But it's just worth noting that when Jesus tells the parable of the sower in Matthew 13, and then he goes ahead and explains the parable of the sower and the thorny soil, where the weeds, the thorns, they choke out the plant, and it doesn't really bear fruit like it should have. Well, he mentions cares and riches. Riches, there we go. And again, for some reason, I feel like, at least myself, that's what people hear, the riches part. Well, when you pursue riches, you won't have fruit. Well, on the flip side, that word cares, it's merimna. It's where we get our word anxiety. Cares and anxieties. That's why Old King James, Philippians 4:6 says, be careful for nothing. But in our New King James and other modern translations, are meaning what I'm reading out of, be anxious for nothing. And when Jesus has to rebuke Martha, he tells her that you have many cares, many merimna. I mean, this is that word. And so it's just worth, again, that when we serve two masters, whether it's pursuing after riches or just being consumed about these cares, these worries, and these anxieties, these are the things that will make us fruitless. And we can't serve two masters. We can either trust our good master, that he will provide our every need, and he will guide us, and he will enable us and equip us for everything he's called us to, or we can pursue riches, pursue security by our own means and our own strength. So you cannot serve God and mammon. You've got to pick. You've got to decide. At the end of the day, whom do you want to serve? Now, Joshua in Joshua 24:15, right, he gives that famous farewell speech. And in there he talks about, choose this day whom you will serve. And he makes mention, whether the God of our fathers on the other side of the river or the gods of the Canaanites. And he's saying, there's the ones from the past, and they're the ones in the lands which we live now. Whether it's past gods or future gods, you decide who you serve. But as for me and my house, you'll serve the Lord. And so there's always going to be an opportunity for another God to serve. Some of them are from your past, and new ones will be presented in your future. It's up to you to decide, how are you going to spend your time? How are you going to spend your money? How are you going to expend your strength? Many people don't want to even expend any strength. Maybe that's it. Maybe you just won't be willing to expend any, to stay up a little bit past bedtime in order to catch an evening church service, to trust God that he'll give you strength if you're trying to go and do things for him and commit your time to him. So you cannot serve God and anything else. There's a throne in your heart, not a love seat. You got room for one. Choose this day whom you will serve. God bless you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow morning, probably 8 a.m. Got a morning meeting, but I think it's supposed to be over before 8 a.m. So 8 a.m. is what I'm shooting for tomorrow, Saturday. God bless, and I will see you then.